Let me do the intro.
Sure. Go for it.
Are we good? Okay. Hi, welcome to Hexi Media, the vaguely leftist podcast broadcasting out of Lancaster City to the greater Susquehanna Valley. I'm Eddie.
I'm Dr. E.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Britt.
We wanted to come on here and just talk about some things that are important to us and probably can be important to you too. And we want to live stream so that people can participate with us and continue the conversation. Eddie, would you make that point that you made about the consensus of everyone, how it affects our own personal thoughts and beliefs?
Well, yes, I would. We were talking about how what everybody knows isn't so much important as what everybody thinks that everybody else knows to be true, and that's how you form what's called consensus. So, like, this especially affects like online platforms. So, like TYT, for example, gets like millions and millions of views, more than like anything on cable news. But the reason it's so frustrating when like they don't get covered on cable news is because more people, like, basically if it's not on television, then you don't know that everybody else knows it. So even though like everybody like gets their news from sources other than cable, if it's not on cable, you don't know that everybody's not on the same page, and that's more important than like raw numbers of like what everybody feels. So that was just like an insight I had like, I don't know, years and years ago. I think it was regarding like TYT, like why they had many more viewers, and it didn't. They were still concerned about like getting on cable and like why it still felt like they weren't as relevant. And I think that's why, because it's that networking effect of like, I have to know that you know that I know that you know that we're on the same page. And to do that in a country with like 350 million people, you need like a centralized communication outlet. And so that was my only point. Noam Chomsky talked about this a little bit in Manufacturing Consent. He talks about like, if you can get everyone to think that like the Iranians need to be destroyed. Steven, if you can get everyone to think that the Iranians need to be destroyed, even if it's only like 3% of the population that thinks that, if they like all agree and they think that they represent the masses, then that's how you can like get the country to do crazy shit.
Yeah, and I would say television media still dominates that consensus of like what we think the consensus is. It's a really kind of hard point to extrapolate, but I understand what you're saying.
It's kind of like college too. Like that's why a degree is useful, even though like you can get the same amount of information on like the internet if you're good, if you like know how to read a source and stuff. But if you don't have that like piece of paper that certifies that like all of society recognizes this, then you're just some guy with ideas. Even though that's all like a lot of these accredited professors and stuff are also just people with ideas. But it's about like being able to get everyone to recognize you as like something.
It always comes back to the money. Whoever has the most money, whoever puts out the most advertising, whoever puts out the most programming, whoever puts out the most information, those are the people who are going to determine what the opinion is. So with that being said, think about how many people actually own media outlets. I think there's like 5.
Yeah,
it's like Disney, NBC, although now I think everyone bought everyone else, so I'm not quite sure who's out
like
there.
Disney and Rupert Murdoch.
I don't know. But it's literally coming from 5 different sources. All of your news, all of your media, that includes online content as well. So no.
Well, even those 5 sources like coordinate. Like we know they do.
Sure.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not like it's, because they're not in competition. When you get down to like 3 or 4 or 5 firms that own like everything in a single block, then it might as well be one company.
And that's the point. Like people like, you can't have monopolies or whatever. Obviously, that's not the case. We know for a fact that's not the case, and it's like trickled down to like the lowest level of. We know that we can only get cable TV from
Sometimes
2 sources, one source, or internet from 2 different sources, or I know it's just the servicing part of it, but cable TV is I think the big part of it.
Yeah, well, and we used to do like trust busting, like anti-monopoly, like that's what kept capitalism.
Oh, absolutely.
And at some point, I don't know when, I don't know the history, but at some point they just decided we're just not going to do that anymore.
Just gave up on it.
We're still keeping up with that.
Slick Willie Clinton got that all going, I believe, in the 90s.
Yeah, the telecommunications
when the media,
Act,
the Telecommunications Act of the 90s.
I don't know who did it, but I mean, I don't necessarily think they gave it up. I think it was a point of we're giving up the facade of, this actually.
We're gonna stop acting like we're enforcing this, so we're just gonna
Yes.
call it what it is.
Well, I mean, they did used to enforce it though, because there used to be a law like where you couldn't I don't know the specifics. Do you know the specifics of Telecommunications Act?
No, but
It was like you couldn't, you couldn't own a certain amount of media, news media, and also do entertainment media. You had to pick a genre, and then I think it was Clinton. You said it was Bill Clinton, right?
It was 1996.
Okay, yeah, he passed Telecommunications Act, which is no rules, do whatever you want.
Okay.
So now that's why Fox and Disney can own news and Frozen and just craft whatever they control everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean but it all comes back to that. If we're thinking about who's putting out opinions or who's making the popular opinion final decision, it's going to be those 5 media outlets or whoever's giving that information. And although there are different opinions out there, those are then labeled deep web or alt left or alt right or whatever, and they're made to almost be vilified. Absolutely. So then you're almost like, oh, is that crazy? Am I crazy for even thinking or agreeing with anything that says?
Right, and you're not. It's just
you're not. It's just maybe a little bit of information that you maybe thought of already, but
it also doesn't help that most of our country are noobs who don't read books.
So of the Telecommunications Act, one of the most controversial titles was Title III, quote, cable services, which allowed for media cross ownership.
Yeah.
So that's media companies used to have to be independent to some regard, like you're saying, but then it allowed, for example, Disney to own a bunch of also media companies all doing the same thing under Disney.
Yeah.
For example.
That's ridiculously large.
And it's funny because do you guys remember maybe earlier 2000s, Comcast made the move to purchase Disney, and everyone basically paused and said, how is this possible that they're able to even do this? There was a big, and it didn't go through for whatever reason, but I'm sure now it's
Disney was call Iron Man.
Yeah, something.
This can't be allowed.
Hold on, call the Avengers. But honestly, it's
we need Luke Skywalker.
Well, that's when they started making those bigger moves. So I think at that point they were bold enough to still say no. Although I think maybe that's changed since then. I don't know if they bought.
I know Disney owns
at this point.
I'm pretty sure they're separate from Comcast, but I think that must be why History Channel went down too. Because that's right around the time they stopped doing history and started doing
HDL is declassified.
Okay, so Disney acquired 21st Century Fox.
There you go.
This was March 20th of this year.
Okay.
And it was for Comcast, parent company of NBC Universal, made its own offer for $65 billion, but then Disney bought it for $71.3 billion.
There it is. Yeah. So just like you said, they're controlling your news, your local NBC the whole way down.
Your history.
So just
honestly, I mean, John Martin, man.
Just Disney of just what they have just in this article is not only everything Disney, but 20th Century Fox and Film Television Studios, Fox Television Group, such as FX, International Networks, 73% stake in National Geographic Partners, Indian television broadcaster Star India, 30% stake in Hulu. Immediately preceding the acquisition, 21st Century Fox spun off the Fox Broadcasting Company, Fox Television Stations, Fox News Channel, Fox Business Network, FS1, FS2, Fox Deportes, the Big Ten Network.
So not only can you sing along to Moana,
that's all.
You can also watch those crazy racist white people on Fox News every day. Brought to you by Disney.
But what's funny is the narrative with it was very much not okay, we're controlling the message or anything like that. They're what if the Avengers and Fantastic Four finally? People were concerned about that.
Right.
They're all what if Kevin McAllister was an Avenger? And it's well, you could do it because that's Fox and that's Disney and Marvel now. So,
they always find a way to sell it to the dummies.
So Fox still owns
Darth Iron Man,
Fox Broadcasting, Fox News, and the last stuff, FS1 and stuff. That's still Fox.
I know Disney owns like ESPN,
Mhm.
History Channel.
ABC.
You remember when we went to Disney World and they showed us that like presentations? So we went to
Yeah.
Disney World.
We
Like,
found out there was gonna be a Toy Story 3 like 10 years before
Yeah.
there was a Toy Story
Yeah.
3. Everyone was like, "Hold on, what?" Like I remember everyone stopped and was
Let
like,
me just say it for the audience. We went to Disney World in 12th grade, which was like our school. And the first thing we did is they like shuffled us in this auditorium. We all sat and they showed us like a presentation, like a pro Disney. Like,
"Welcome to Disney.
Yeah.
This is us. This is
and
Disney."
they like flashed all the things they owned to like a rapper like what do you call it? Like
A
building
a
stuff up.
montage of
Yeah.
stuff they
They were like
own.
showing you all their like bling, and it was like every channel, and we all were just sitting there like looking at each other. Like,
Every channel, every upcoming movie, every
like everything.
just every popular show on like primetime TV.
Yeah, ESPN. I feel like I also remember like Tropicana or like some other weird brands. where it's, like,
Coca-Cola.
regular
Like
stuff.
Dole
Huge.
raisins.
They own Coca-Cola.
Well, that world of what's like the World of Coke or whatever. I know it sounds bad, but the World of Coke is like in Epcot, I think.
Wow.
Look that up.
Oh my god, that sounds terrible.
Do you guys not remember that?
I know Coke owns Fanta because they made it to sell to the Nazis. Because they had to sell to Germany, but they didn't want to be selling to like Nazis, so they made like Fanta, and nobody knew it was the same company,
Well,
and they sold that to the Nazis.
we already know this as well. I'm hearing.
That's why I love China and the communists and shit. Because like, there's no Chinese company owned by Disney. Like they're like, fuck out of here.
You don't know that. They just said they own 70 some.
In India,
And
I bet there's no. I bet none
India is
them
one of
in
the
China.
biggest Asian countries in the world, or the biggest countries in the world. But
what I'm
also
saying.
especially Asian.
Well, that's what reminded me of China. Is like I was like, oh shit, India. I was like, what about China? And I think about the Chinese, and they're just like, no, like we will
We
control.
reject that.
Your capitalism can only go so far. Now their replacement is like this weird, like internal capitalism.
I was about to say they have their own
Fascist.
internet that they
They have
can
their own
look
problems.
at certain things.
They have their own
or-
problems, but they have no problem telling moneyed interests to go fuck themselves. And that's what I really appreciate. Same with the Soviet Union, which doesn't exist anymore. Obviously.
Disney owns Lucasfilms. That's
Oh, yeah.
about a couple billion per year right there. Probably.
That's
Just
told you.
movies and video.
I'm a big
games.
Star Wars fan too. Oh,
And
and
that's
they're
the thing.
ruining it because they're pumping out
Oh.
so much content. Like, I don't even care.
I was gonna say it's the opposite. Like people like are like it's okay Disney. Like keep giving us Avengers and Star Wars Star Wars World.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That new place that's opening for
Disney
them.
World.
Like I agree. Like it
Tear
would
down
be cool,
swamps and things.
but
for
there's just too much. Like I can't even like if I'm getting stressed that I'm falling so far behind and can't keep up because they're just like cranking out garbage. I'm like, dude, slow down. Like I want to be a fan, but I don't need this to be a chore. That's how I feel.
I think it's also we were talking about this yesterday with Aladdin because we went to go see it this weekend. Here's the thing. Again, Disney can do no wrong. You love them so much. Go ahead and do that and show us Fox News. We're okay with it.
Yeah. right, yeah.
Because I loved Aladdin. It was.
Mm.
I thought it was great. You didn't think it was that great. I liked it. I appreciated it after,
Was it exactly the same as the cooking?
More or less, like all the major plot points, like all the beats.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's the thing. I was watching the Lion King trailer,
Lines.
and I'm like, this looks so good, and I'm like, wonder how it's gonna end. Like we know this.
Yeah, that's funny because you're like, why do I like this? Then I know exactly, and I know like at this point I know it's going to be over, and that's fine too. But it was fun.
I'll watch it.
Yeah.
That brings up what we were talking about too. Like a lot of these like
Oh, yeah.
remakes things we're doing, they're not for us. Like we're
They're not for us anymore.
entitled old millennials just being like, oh, they're doing the same thing we did when we were kids. No, it's just
Our
'cause
childhood's coming back.
Do you think
Kids
that's
are-
true though? You don't think they're doing it for like nostalgia?
I'm sure
Not
that's
at
part
all.
of it, but I'm also sure like market research is showing that children don't like cartoons anymore. They don't want to
Mm.
watch animated things. Like maybe they prefer this, and if you have the property and rights to something that was a hit before,
Yeah.
then you know that
I
bunch of
think-
30-years are going to buy it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
It's
like-
kind of hard to argue against.
It's for our generation to like take our kids to now. It's
Correct.
like, oh,
Yeah.
we'll put out all the same movies.
And
from
that's
when
the
y'all were
point I brought up
kids.
to him. I said if I had a child who, was between the ages of 2 and 10, yeah, I'm like so excited that they're growing up in this time. And that makes sense. Generationally speaking, I should have a child that's between 2 and 10. I don't. But if I
You're
did,
not
which a
alone.
lot of my friends do, they're excited to take their kids to like, oh, I'm gonna go see Aladdin. But also a couple years ago I was excited to see Moana and it was new. Now my kids can't stop singing it, but now like I can introduce them Aladdin. Like
And
it's
Frozen was
yeah,
nice.
you know, the adults get into it, the kids get into it, but then also you know the teenagers get into it.
But that's
so it
also
works.
like the gross monoculture we live in, where like everybody's stunted at like 14 for like 3 generations. Like nothing ever changed. You remember like when we were kids
Absolutely.
and the Oscars would be like The English Patient, like Mrs. Doubtfire, Jurassic Park. Like people came up with completely original from top to bottom movies, and everybody was talking. And now it's like almost everything that comes out is
Yeah, you have to have that one racial feel good movie of the year.
yeah.
And if it's not a feel good movie, then that's the one that should probably get the Oscar more than likely. And then there's also the one where it's like a first time director with an up and coming of age story.
We also haven't had a good like history movie in like a decade or two. We've had like except for like the slave ones and shit. Like
That's what I'm saying. Like
Holocaust, like
you're gonna find all those.
the guilt one. But like what's the last good war movie? What's the last good war movie you saw? Saving Private Ryan.
Can you count Inglourious Bastards?
Oh,
I guess.
So
Yeah, I
good.
suppose. I guess.
There's
That's
war in it.
Historical fiction.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
fiction for
kind
sure.
of goofy.
Yeah.
the last good war movie I saw that like I remember coming home and I was like, oh my god, like go watch this. Atonement. Should.
What's it about?
It's basically the British side of World War II. So, but basically the home front. And I didn't, because we always learn American history of it, you know, where we went and then, you know, how it kind of dissolved into our other wars of like Korea and Vietnam. That's the path we always take. We never see like, you know, how did Europe rebuild itself other than, you know, just being mad
for the
at
people who
Germany
actually lived
forever.
there.
Yeah. So actually it was really interesting. So
The
talk about that.
battlefield natives.
Yeah. So it basically talked about the start of it, like, you know, losing people and how, you know, and how, basically, besides the actual dramatic part of the story, talking about just strictly the war part of the story, how the British had to basically hide underground. A lot of them were killed in bombings because, you know, we can't imagine as Americans, besides Pearl Harbor, American soil, it happening to us. That's all it took on, was just bombings in their cities and in their countrysides, and, you know, having to send them as far away as possible, the kids and older family members and things like that. But,
A real Narnia situation.
yeah. Take our orphans.
Aslan.
But basically that's what it's about. So, and then like coming home and, you know, what does that mean when you come home?
All right.
You're still just as messed up as anything else.
Check it out.
So definitely watch it.
Did you ever see The Free State of Jones?
I've heard of that,
Dude,
but I did
it's
not see that.
so good.
It's a show, right?
It's a movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's Matthew McConaughey plays like a Confederate soldier, right? But like, you know how like most Civil War movies are like the Confederacy is actually like kind of romantic and awesome.
Yeah, there's the
Well, this-
romanticized part of it.
this
where
is-
it really
and-
just
and-
hippie loving. Or
Well, basically,
not
he's
hippie
like in the war. His kid gets shot within like the first 5 minutes of the movie, and he's just like, "Fuck this," and just like deserts. And then like the local authorities come after him, and then he finds like escaped slaves,
loving.
and then they like team up because they're all like outcasts, and they like take on the government. It's like almost 100% accurate to like how it happened. And then it gives them like reconstruction and stuff. But what I really loved about the movie is it has like very socialist undertones. Like we all have to take care of each other and like fuck anybody who comes to take your resources. And B, it really dispels the notion of the Confederacy as like these simple, quaint people who just want to drink their mint juleps and like live in like, you know, like in the rural country. It's like, no, the federal government of the Confederacy was like a tyrannical, big state, like fascist entity that like terrorized its people and anybody who didn't get on board. And it was like really, really, really good. Yeah, I really recommend it.
Yeah, I think that's almost like the backup of countries during war. Like, you know, use your patriotism against you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
like
Yeah.
let us like rape your cows and like, you know, sleep in your house during the Civil War because we need to.
The way our governments are, at least the United States government acts during wartime when they're going to push something is like the same, is no more sophisticated than the bully who's like, if you don't like hop that fence, you're gay. Like it's like they're like, you're not a patriot if you don't want to go to war. Like it's literally that simple and stupid.
Yeah.
We need to go to war with Iran, even though they did nothing to us. And if you're like, well, actually, they're abided by the nuclear deal, they're like, you're gay. And that's, but though it's just like you're a patriot. Or you're
Meanwhile, I'm
American.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
you're lit. It's like the most
Yeah.
Neanderthal, like
But then at the same time, we're talking about, how we got on the subject while that's happening. I'm like, oh, look, Frozen 2 is coming out. Like,
They could dangle that carrot out there.
yeah, and I'm like, cool. Like,
It's like Slaughter Island. It's Frozen 2.
Dude, okay, one more point about the movie industry too is
Mhm.
like it's also known that like, the CIA is like very influential when it comes to like the Hollywood films that get released. And
We're recording, honey. You gotta get back.
like for example, like American
least got a
Sniper, like that's like pure like propaganda,
Oh, for sure.
glorifying.
Oh.
Like, this guy's like a hero.
Okay.
He's like
Steven
the
Universe.
best.
Sorry.
I mean, he did his job, but his job is killing. And
Right,
like,
yeah, it's still
he's killing because the
murder.
government.
He was also
telling
like
him
a
to.
psychopathic liar. He claimed he was on the roof in New Orleans during Katrina shooting looters, like sniping looters, which never happened.
Yeah, and he had a big beef with Jesse Ventura. He claimed that
Who was
Jesse
that?
Ventura, the American Sniper in real life, Chris Kyle.
First of all, so you're admitting to shooting like pedestrian or like people who were trying to live and survive.
Oh no,
So you were one of those people that were shooting looters in New Orleans. Fabulous.
I need you, Daddy.
Okay, so why don't we end this?
Yeah, I'll deal
part?
with him.
Okay.
That was actually probably a good place to end it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
We'll just say goodbye for now and catch you next time.
All right, thanks for tuning in. We'll see how this goes.
Bye.
Oh my god, we made the same noise! Bye!
I think I hit 10. It says we should.
Yee.